If you are a massive Les Mis fan like me, then you're already familiar with the moral dilemma Jean Valjean faces in the song, Who Am I?
Who am I?
For those of you that need a little refresher, Jean Valjean stole some bread, worked in a prison labor camp for 19 years, was put on parole, broke parole, and then started a new life under a fake name. And he rocks it. He becomes an incredibly successful businessman and the mayor of a town whose name I just cannot pronounce. Montreuil-sur-Mer.
Montreuil-sur-Mer.
I'm not French. But then he finds out that the police have arrested a man that they believe to be Valjean. They sentence him for Valjean's crimes and plan to send him to prison for the rest of his life. When Valjean finds out, he has to make a decision. If he turns himself in, he saves an innocent man from a terrible fate. But in doing so, the hundreds of townspeople and workers who rely on his enterprise will be abandoned, jobless, and potentially homeless. He eventually decides to turn himself in, but was that the morally correct decision? Was it the right thing to do? Now, for the sake of simplicity, we're going to ignore all of the whataboutisms. Any questions like, why couldn't he have used his power and influence to get the innocent man freed some other way? You could go on with what-if questions like this, and it would take hours if not days. So we're going to assume that this is a completely binary decision. It is either one or the other. First, let's look at the case that Valjean himself presents.
I am the master of hundreds of workers, they all look to me. Can I abandon them? How will they live if I am not free?
Valjean knows firsthand from his experiences with Fantine just how brutal the consequences of unemployment in this time can be. So if you were to take the utilitarian approach, that would be the end of the discussion. Utilitarianism is the idea that the correct choice is the one that does the most good for the most people. That feels really logical, but utilitarianism has a lot of flaws to it. For example, if we were all being utilitarian, we would frequently kill perfectly healthy people so that we could harvest all their organs to save multiple other people's lives from various ailments. One person dies, sure, but you save 10 other lives. Utilitarianism. Then, Valjean poses the other side of the argument.
I condemn this man to slavery. Pretend I do not feel his agony.
Once again, Valjean knows from his own personal experience just how terrible this man's life will be. The French prison system at this point was pretty much just slavery. In the book, which is a little bit more detailed than the musical, okay, a lot more detailed than the musical, we learn that Valjean originally decides to let the man be convicted in his place. And then he spends the entire night wrestling with his conscience.
Must I lie? How can I ever face my fellow man? How can I ever face myself again? My soul belongs to God, I know I made that bargain long ago. He gave me hope when hope was gone. He gave me strength to journey on. Who am I? Who am I? I'm Jean Valjean.
And that element of conscience is what makes me think that Valjean may have made the right decision. This idea of being an honest man has become the driving force for his life. And to abandon that premise now would undermine all of his growth. And when I say honest man, I don't mean a very literal, I never lie honest. I assume since Valjean is living under a fake name, he probably lies all the time. But they use honest man to mean a good man. The kind of man he wants to be. And the kind of man that he believes God wants him to be. Virtue ethics, a school of ethical thought that I'm personally a huge fan of, is all about making decisions based on some kind of moral framework that leads to us becoming a better person. Not just doing right things, but becoming something better. And if you want to become a better person, you may find yourself having an internal dialogue much like Jean Valjean's. Because let's be honest, he knew right from the beginning which choice he was supposed to make. But then he came up with very compelling and very valid reasons to talk himself out of it. And we do the same thing all the time. You might see an opportunity to do the right thing, and then you'll backtrack. You'll start finding ways to talk yourself out of it. Thoughts like, oh, I should go help them. But would that be weird? I don't want to make them uncomfortable. It's probably best to just let them handle it themselves. In these circumstances, your first thought is usually, emphasis on usually, the correct one. And the more you practice, the more likely it is that your first instinct is the correct one. Don't let yourself make excuses and talk yourself out of moral behavior. So my question for you is, do you agree with Jean Valjean's decision? Remember, moral dilemmas like this often don't just have one right or wrong answer. Shoot, sometimes they don't have any right answer. Let me know what you think in the comments, and maybe together we can make the world a little bit of a better place.